You're watching Forsaken Joe. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy the story. Let's begin. I had everything set for a perfect anniversary getaway. My name is Nathan, and I was 37 years old. I live in a small town near the coast where everyone knows everyone. My wife, Alyssa, and I had been married for 10 years. We were celebrating our decade together with a special trip to a beachside resort, one I'd been planning for months. I'd chosen this spot carefully, a quiet place where we could relax, reconnect, and reflect on the years we'd spent together. I'd even reserved a private dinner on a terrace overlooking the water. I could already picture it. The sunset casting golden light across the ocean, the soft music playing in the background, the feeling of having her all to myself. It was going to be perfect. But when Alyssa didn't even seem excited about it, I started to get uneasy. She was distant. Her usual warmth was missing, replaced by a cool indifference I couldn't quite place. I tried to brush it off. Maybe she was tired from work. Maybe she was just nervous about the trip. We arrived at the resort, and things weren't much better. Alyssa seemed distracted, barely engaging in conversation. I assumed it was just nerves, or maybe the weight of the anniversary hanging over her. She had always been the type to downplay celebrations, so I told myself not to make a big deal out of it. Finally, the dinner came. We were seated at the terrace, the sound of waves crashing softly against the rocks below. The waiter poured our wine, and for a moment, I thought maybe things were turning around. Alyssa finally looked up from her phone, offering me a small smile. "So, how's the food?" I asked, trying to break the silence. She picked at her plate, glancing up at me briefly. "It's good, I guess." I frowned. Something was off. "Alyssa, is everything okay?" She set her fork down slowly and looked at me with a sigh. "Nathan, there's something I need to tell you." I leaned forward, heart suddenly racing. This wasn't like her. She wasn't the type to sit me down for serious conversations without warning. "What's wrong?" Alyssa looked out at the ocean for a long moment before speaking again. "I sold the cabin in Lakewood." I froze, the words catching me off guard. My mind immediately flashed to that cabin, a small but cozy retreat my father had passed down to me. It was more than just a piece of property. It was a part of my father's legacy. The place where I spent summer weekends fishing, hiking, and making memories with him before he passed away. I looked at Alyssa, trying to understand. "What do you mean, you sold it?" She shrugged nonchalantly, as if it were no big deal. "It wasn't being used. It's just sitting there, Nathan. I sold it to help Tyler with his business. It was a pragmatic decision." Tyler? I hadn't heard that name in a while. Alyssa had never mentioned a business deal involving him, let alone the fact that she was working with him. My thoughts raced, trying to piece together this strange puzzle. "You sold my family's cabin without even telling me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, but I could feel the anger rising inside of me. She met my eyes with a blank expression, like she hadn't done anything wrong. "Well, I didn't think it was that important. You barely ever go up there anymore." Barely ever? That cabin was part of my life, my memories. And now she was acting like it was just some old piece of junk that needed to be tossed out. A few seconds of silence passed between us, and then I spoke, my voice low but controlled. "You know what, Alyssa? This is not okay." She tilted her head slightly, her expression indifferent. "It's just a house, Nathan. Calm down." Something snapped in me. I couldn't explain it, but I knew in that moment that everything I'd been ignoring for months, her distance, the cracks in our relationship, had finally come to a head. I wasn't going to let this go. Not this time. I didn't say anything else for the rest of the dinner. I just sat there, staring at my wine glass, my mind racing. The anger bubbled up, but I knew I needed to control it. Alyssa had crossed a line, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it, but I wasn't going to confront her now. Not in the middle of our anniversary dinner. I'd find a way to make her realize what she had done. I'd find a way to make her feel it the same way I did. The night ended quietly, and we went back to the room. I couldn't sleep. I lay awake in the darkness, replaying the conversation over and over in my head, my anger simmering beneath the surface. Tomorrow, I would make a plan. Days passed after Alyssa's casual revelation about the cabin. The anger simmered inside of me, always just below the surface. But what really unsettled me was the way she acted afterward. She seemed so carefree, as if nothing had changed, while I felt like my whole world had shifted beneath me. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than she was letting on. At first, I tried to distract myself with work, but my mind kept drifting back to that conversation, to her dismissal of the cabin, of my father's legacy. I started noticing things, little, seemingly insignificant details that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Alyssa had been acting strange for a while now. She kept her phone screen angled away from me when we were in the same room. I'd catch her laughing at messages, but whenever I tried to glance over, she'd quickly put her phone down or change the subject. It wasn't like her. Alyssa was always open about everything, or at least she used to be. One afternoon, I was in the kitchen and I saw her slip her phone into her bag, but not before I caught a glimpse of the name Tyler in one of her recent messages. I didn't think much of it at first. Tyler was a name I'd heard mentioned in passing a few times. He was one of her old college friends, a guy who'd been through a rough patch. But something about seeing his name in that context felt off. It stuck in my mind like a thorn I couldn't pull out. The next day I took a closer look at her car. I'd been meaning to clean it out, but what really caught my attention was the pair of sunglasses on the passenger seat. I didn't recognize them. They weren't hers. They were men's sunglasses. My stomach churned. I told myself I was overreacting, but the seed of suspicion had already been planted. Later that evening, while Alyssa was taking a shower, I decided to dig through the receipts in the glove box. What I found made my blood run cold. There were receipts for restaurants I hadn't taken her to, a trendy sushi place in the city. We hadn't gone to any fancy restaurants in weeks. It was clear she had been dining out, but not with me. The timestamps didn't add up either. I hadn't been away for business during those evenings. Alyssa hadn't said a word about any of it. But it was the next discovery that hit hardest. I logged into our joint bank account to check our finances. That's when I saw it, a transfer, a large one routed from the sale of the cabin. It had been moved into a mysterious account, one I didn't recognize. And when I pulled up the details, I saw it was under Tyler's name. I froze. I couldn't breathe. The sale of the cabin, the transfer of funds, Tyler. It was all starting to make sense in the worst way possible. Alyssa hadn't just sold my family's cabin for business reasons. She'd done it for him, for Tyler. I sat down at the kitchen table, staring at the screen in front of me, my hands trembling. There was no mistaking what was happening. Alyssa had been lying to me. She'd been spending time with Tyler, keeping secrets. And now I had proof. Frustration, anger, and confusion mixed together inside me. But I knew I couldn't confront her yet. I needed more. I needed hard evidence. Something undeniable. That's when I reached out to Danny. He was a friend from college, a guy who had gone into private investigations after law school. We'd lost touch over the years, but I knew he'd be able to dig up what I needed. I didn't even know where to start, but Danny would. I picked up my phone, dialing his number. "Hey, Danny," I said, my voice tight. "I need your help with something. It's about Alyssa and a guy named Tyler." The house was dark when I heard the front door open. I had been waiting in the shadows, my mind racing through every detail of what I had uncovered. I wasn't sure how this would go, but I knew it was time to face the truth. Alyssa had lied to me, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. The soft click of the door closing echoed in the quiet house, and then I heard her footsteps approaching. She stopped when she saw me sitting in the living room, shrouded in darkness. "Nathan, why are you sitting here in the dark?" Her voice was light, casual, as if everything was fine. But I knew better now. I knew too much. "I've been waiting for you," I said, my voice steady, almost too steady. I could feel the weight of the words that were about to come out. But I had to say them. There was no turning back. She stepped into the living room, still trying to act normal. "What's going on? You look serious." I stood up, taking a slow step toward her. "We need to talk." Alyssa glanced at the couch and sat down, still maintaining that calm facade. "I don't know why you're acting like this, Nathan. I already told you about the cabin." It was a decision I had to make. I felt the anger bubble up again, but I held it in check. "It's not just about the cabin, Alyssa," I said, pulling out my phone from my pocket and flicking through the photos I had gathered. "It's about Tyler." Her face went pale, but she quickly tried to mask it with a smile. "Tyler? What do you mean?" I dropped the photos in front of her, images of her and Tyler laughing together at restaurants, and then the receipts, clear as day, showing dinner dates I hadn't been a part of. She looked at them, and for a moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes. "You've been seeing him behind my back," I said, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "Not just him, though. You've been helping him with something much bigger than I thought." Her eyes shifted, and she opened her mouth to respond, but I held up a hand to stop her. I wasn't finished yet. "I had him investigated," I continued, calm now, but my heart pounding in my chest. "Tyler's involved in a money laundering scheme. You didn't just sell the cabin for his business. You've been used, Alyssa. And you didn't even know it." She stared at me, her lips trembling slightly. I didn't know," she whispered, but I could hear the defensiveness in her voice. "I didn't know what I was getting into." "You were so busy with him," I shot back, "that you didn't even realize what was happening. All those transfers, the money that went straight into his account. You think I didn't notice?" She stood up now, pacing a little, her hands wringing together. "Nathan, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you." I narrowed my eyes. "Then why didn't you tell me the truth? Why didn't you say anything about Tyler, about the cabin?" Her voice became sharper, more defensive. "You're being paranoid. You're controlling me. It's just money. I didn't think it would matter this much." I took a deep breath, the anger seeping back into my voice. "It matters because you've betrayed me, Alyssa. You sold the cabin, the one thing my father left me, and you didn't even consult me. You lied, and you've been hiding your affair with him. And now, I'm going to make sure you understand the consequences of this." She stepped back, shaking her head, looking as if she was trying to process what I was saying. "What do you mean? What are you going to do?" "The FBI knows about Tyler," I said, watching her face fall. "They've been tracking him, and now, because of your involvement, you'll be dragged into it too. You may not see it now, but you're part of this, Alyssa. You've been played." Her eyes filled with tears, and she looked at me, desperate. "Please, Nathan. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you." "Run," I said, my voice softer than I intended, but resolute. "Get out of this mess while you still can." The words seemed to hit her like a punch. She stood there, staring at me for a long moment, unsure of what to do. Then, with a final glance at the evidence on the table, she turned and walked out, leaving me standing alone in the room. I didn't feel the satisfaction I thought I would. Instead, I felt emptiness. The betrayal had cut deep, and it would take time to heal, but this was the first step. The next morning, I woke up to an empty bed. The silence in the house felt overwhelming, pressing against my chest like a weight I couldn't shake off. Alyssa was gone, just like that, leaving behind nothing but the faint scent of her perfume lingering in the air. Her absence was almost suffocating. I sat there for hours on the edge of our bed, staring at the untouched space where she used to be. The room felt foreign now, like a place I no longer belonged. I had expected anger, or maybe even regret, but instead, I felt numb. It was a strange mixture of emptiness and relief. Part of me was relieved she was gone, that I no longer had to live in the shadow of her lies, but another part of me, the part that had invested years in this relationship, mourned the loss of everything I thought we had built together. Around midday, my phone buzzed, snapping me out of my thoughts. I picked it up, recognizing the number immediately. It was Maddie, Alyssa's cousin. I'd barely spoken to her over the past few months, but I wasn't in the mood to talk to anyone right now. "Hello?" I answered, my voice hoarse. "Nathan, it's Maddie. I don't know what's going on, but I just talked to Alyssa, and she's beside herself. You need to understand, she didn't want it to end like this. You can't just throw everything away like this." I felt a cold rage bubble up in my chest. "You don't know what's going on, Maddie. You don't understand how deep the betrayal goes." She ignored the venom in my voice, continuing in her usual tone of misguided concern. "You're not being fair, Nathan. She's been under so much pressure. You can't let your anger ruin everything. Just talk to her." I cut her off, my patience thinning. "Talk to her? After everything she's done, you think I should just talk to her? After she sold my father's cabin behind my back? After she lied to me, kept secrets from me? I'm done, Maddie. I don't need you telling me what's fair. You don't get to take her side." There was a pause on the other end, and I could almost hear her scrambling to find the right words. "I'm just saying, Nathan, she's your wife. You can't just give up on everything. Don't let your anger decide for you." "I'm not angry," I said quietly, feeling the numbness return. "I'm just done." I hung up, the finality of it settling in my chest. It wasn't anger anymore. It wasn't rage. It was the realization that I had been living in a lie for years, and that truth, no matter how painful, was the only thing that could set me free. I sat in the silence of our house, letting the weight of it all hit me. I had invested everything into that marriage. My time, my trust, my love. And for what? A betrayal that shattered everything. It was hard to accept that I had been so blind, so willing to overlook the cracks, just to keep the illusion of a perfect life. My phone buzzed again, but this time it was Danny. "Hey Nathan, I've got the full report. Tyler isn't just some guy your wife was seeing. He's involved in a pretty big money laundering operation. The cabin was just the tip of the iceberg. I've got all the details." I felt a sickening thrill of vindication mixed with the bitterness of betrayal. It was worse than I had imagined. Tyler wasn't just a businessman, he was a criminal, and Alyssa had unknowingly been dragged into it. "Thanks, Danny. I'll take it from here." I ended the call and sat in the silence again, the truth finally sinking in. Alyssa wasn't just the woman I had loved. She was a pawn in a game I didn't even know we were playing. And now, all I could do was pick up the pieces of my own shattered life. I was sitting at the kitchen table, still processing the weight of everything that had happened when my phone rang. I glanced at the screen and saw an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't pick it up, but something told me I should. "Hello?" I answered, my voice steady, though I could feel my heart rate picking up. "Is this Nathan?" A woman's voice on the other end was calm but urgent. "Yes, who's this?" "My name is Jenna. I'm Tyler's wife," she said, and my stomach dropped. "I know this might be hard to hear, but I need you to listen carefully." I leaned forward in my chair, suddenly all ears. "Go ahead." Jenna took a deep breath. "I'm sure you're aware of what's been happening with your wife. She didn't know what she was getting involved with. Tyler has been using her. He's been laundering money through her name. All those payments, the sale of the cabin, it's all part of his plan. He's been setting her up to take the fall. I don't think she even realizes what's going on." I froze. The room felt like it was closing in on me. Everything I had discovered about Tyler's involvement in shady business dealings was now starting to make sense. "Are you telling me Alyssa is involved in a money laundering scheme?" I asked, my voice shaking slightly. Jenna sighed. "Yes. She's been manipulated, Nathan. Tyler is using her to cover his tracks. He's been so careful, and now he's gone. He's disappeared. I'm sorry, I don't know what to do. But I wanted you to know the truth." I stood up abruptly, pacing the room, trying to process everything she was saying. It felt like the ground was shifting beneath me. Tyler wasn't just some businessman. He was a criminal, and Alyssa had unwittingly been pulled into his web. After a long silence, I took a deep breath, the anger slowly turning into something else. "What do you want from me, Jenna?" She paused before speaking again. "I just wanted you to know the full story. Maybe you can help her. But if you want to help her, you need to act fast. He's already disappeared, and she's going to be in a lot of trouble. The authorities are going to be looking for her soon." My mind raced. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was about saving Alyssa from herself. She had been used. She had been a pawn in a much larger game. And now I had to make a decision. "I'll help her," I said, my voice firm, despite the swirling chaos inside me. "But she needs to know the truth. I'm going to call her." Jenna's voice softened. "Thank you, Nathan. I just didn't want her to go down for something she didn't know about." I hung up and stood there for a moment, the weight of the decision settling in. I wasn't sure if I was doing this out of some lingering affection for Alyssa, or because I felt it was the right thing to do. But I knew one thing for sure. I had to act fast. I dialed Alyssa's number. My heart thudded in my chest as I waited for her to pick up. When she finally did, her voice sounded shaky, distant. "Nathan?" she said, sounding surprised. "What's going on?" "I know everything, Alyssa," I said, my voice cold but controlled. "I know about Tyler, about the money laundering, about everything." There was a long pause on the other end, followed by her frantic voice. "What? Nathan, I don't know what you're talking about." "I haven't done anything wrong." "Listen to me," I interrupted. "Tyler is using you. He's been laundering money through your name. You've been set up to take the fall for him." I didn't know," Alyssa whispered, the weight of the realization hitting her. "I never meant for any of this to happen, Nathan. I thought he loved me." I took a deep breath, feeling a strange mixture of vindication and pity. "Alyssa, you need to run. Get away from him before the authorities catch up to you." She was silent for a moment. "What do you mean, run?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I mean, leave. Leave Tyler. Leave everything behind. They're coming for you, and it's only a matter of time before they find out you were involved. But you can still get out of this if you leave now." "I don't know what to do," she said, her voice breaking. "Please help me, Nathan. Please." I swallowed, the harshness of the situation starting to settle in. "There's nothing I can do, Alyssa. I'm sorry, but I can't save you. I've already done all I can. You have to make this choice for yourself." Her sobs echoed through the phone, but I couldn't backtrack now. This wasn't about saving her. It was about making sure she faced the consequences of her actions, just like I had to face mine. "I've got to go, Alyssa," I said, the words final, even though a part of me wanted to reach out and take care of her. "Just run. You'll be better off without him." The phone call ended with nothing but silence. I sat down, the weight of the conversation settling in, knowing it would be the last time I would ever speak to her. That night, the news broke. Alyssa had been arrested for her involvement in the scheme, and Tyler was nowhere to be found. Justice had been served, but as I sat in the quiet of my home, I couldn't shake the bitter feeling in my chest. This wasn't the closure I had hoped for, but it was the only closure I was ever going to get. The cabin was gone. The place I had grown up in, the last piece of my father's legacy, had been demolished. All that remained was an empty lot, the bare dirt and gravel a stark reminder of what I had lost. Standing there, in the place where so many memories had been made, I felt a strange sense of relief wash over me. It wasn't just the cabin that had been taken from me. It was the life I had built around it, the family, the trust, the love. And now, it was all gone. I had already signed the divorce papers. The weight of that decision didn't feel heavy anymore, just final. Alyssa was gone, and with her, so were all the illusions I had held onto for so long. The betrayal, the lies, they had broken something in me. But standing in that empty space, I realized something. I wasn't broken anymore. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the small velvet pouch. Inside was the bracelet I had given Alyssa on our first anniversary. It had always been a symbol of our commitment, a promise that we'd make it through anything. Now, it was just a painful reminder of everything that had gone wrong. I stared at it for a long moment, my fingers tracing the delicate gold links. The weight of the past pressed down on me, but it wasn't the same anymore. The pain was dull, distant. The anger, the regret, the heartbreak, it was all still there, but it no longer controlled me. With a final sigh, I dropped the bracelet into the fire pit, watching as the flames consumed it. The gold twisted and melted, turning into nothing more than a pile of ash. It was gone, and so was the version of me that had held on so tightly to a love that was never real. As the fire crackled, I felt a strange sense of peace settle over me. I wasn't angry anymore, I wasn't sad, I was free. My phone buzzed in my pocket, snapping me out of my thoughts. It was Maddie, Alyssa's cousin. I had been expecting this call. I didn't want to pick it up, but I knew I had to. I answered with a sigh. "Maddie?" "Nathan," she said, her voice tentative. "I know we haven't been on the best terms lately, but I just wanted to call and apologize. I didn't understand what you were going through. I was just trying to support Alyssa, and I wasn't there for you." "I'm sorry." I let her words hang in the air for a moment. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to lash out and tell her everything I had been holding inside. But in the end, I just didn't care enough anymore. "It's fine, Maddie," I said, my voice calm, distant. "It's over now, and I'm done. With Alyssa, with all of it." There was a long pause on the other end. "I know, Nathan. I just wish I had understood sooner. You weren't the one who betrayed me, Maddie. But it doesn't matter anymore." I felt the last remnants of the past slip away, like sand through my fingers. "I'm moving on." I hung up before she could say anything more. As I stood there, watching the fire burn away the last pieces of my old life, I felt something else, something lighter, something freer. This wasn't about anger or revenge. It wasn't even about Alyssa anymore. It was about me, and finally taking control of my own future. The fire burned bright, and for the first time in months, I felt a true sense of peace. The days felt quieter now. The weight of everything that had happened, Alyssa, the betrayal, the destruction of the life I thought I had, seemed to lift slowly, almost imperceptibly. It was like the heavy fog that had settled over me for so long was finally beginning to dissipate. I woke up early most mornings now, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. There was something peaceful about the stillness before the world around me stirred. I would brew a pot of coffee, letting the aroma fill the room as I sat at the kitchen table, just thinking. The house was quieter too, now that it was just me. The endless noise, the rushed conversations, the half-hearted attempts at love, all of it was gone. I'd been so caught up in the whirlwind of the past few months that I hadn't noticed how much it had drained me. Now, there was only the soft rhythm of my own breath and the quiet hum of the world outside. It wasn't that I didn't miss Alyssa, I had spent years with her. But there was something freeing about being on my own, something I hadn't known I needed until I experienced it. I no longer had to hide my feelings, to second-guess every interaction, or to live in the shadow of someone else's choices. I had been avoiding the call from Danny for a few days, not sure how to respond. He had kept me updated on Alyssa's case, and I knew I had to hear it. When the phone rang, I didn't hesitate. "Nathan?" Danny's voice came through the line, steady. "Alyssa's taken a plea deal. She'll be serving a minimum sentence, but it's likely she'll be out in a few years." I wasn't surprised. In some ways, I had been expecting this. What I hadn't expected was the sense of peace that followed his words. It wasn't about revenge or justice anymore. It was about closure. Alyssa would pay for what she had done, but there was nothing more I needed to do. I had let go. "That's it then," I said, leaning back in my chair. I could hear Danny's silent acknowledgement on the other end. "You're okay?" he asked, and I could hear the concern in his voice. "I'm fine," I replied, my voice calm. "Actually, I'm better than fine. I'm at peace." There was a pause, and then Danny laughed lightly. "Well, I'm glad to hear that." I smiled, but I didn't feel the need to explain it further. I didn't owe anyone an explanation anymore. A few days later, I got a package. It was from Jenna, Tyler's wife. I hadn't spoken to her much since the revelation about her husband's betrayal, but when I opened the box, I found a simple note inside, along with a small, unexpected gift. The note read, "I know this is probably the last thing you expected from me, but I wanted to send this as a gesture of a fresh start. I hope you can find peace in this new chapter of your life." Inside was a set of measuring spoons. Simple, practical, yet thoughtful. It made me chuckle. There was something so ordinary about it, and yet it felt perfect. A small, grounding reminder that life was moving on, that I was moving on. I put the spoons in the drawer, alongside the other small things that had been waiting for me to notice them. It wasn't a grand gesture, but it was enough. I started baking shortly after, the quiet process of kneading dough and mixing ingredients becoming a form of therapy. The heat of the oven, the smell of fresh bread, the simplicity of it all. It grounded me, kept me in the moment. For the first time in a long time, I was doing something just for myself. No one else, no expectations. As I stood at the counter, watching the dough rise, I realized that this was what peace felt like. It wasn't flashy or dramatic. It wasn't about finding something bigger than myself. It was about the small, simple things. The feeling of a full kitchen, the quiet of the mornings, the satisfaction of creating something with my own hands. I had finally found the stillness I had been looking for. The chaos, the pain, the drama, it had all been left behind. I was free. And with that, a new chapter of my life began. Months passed, and the space where the cabin had once stood seemed to grow emptier by the day. It was a reminder that even the things we hold most dearly can be taken from us, either by others or by the passage of time. But what haunted me most wasn't the loss of the cabin itself. It was the loss of what I thought was a family, a bond, a life that was mine. I stood in front of the empty lot, my hands in my pockets, breathing in the fresh air. The old life felt like a dream now, distant and fading. Alyssa's betrayal had broken something in me, but I had finally put the pieces back together. The pain still lingered, but it no longer controlled me. I had let go in a way I hadn't thought possible. And then the letter arrived. I had been expecting it, but when I opened the envelope and saw the words, "Alyssa has been released after serving a reduced sentence," a strange sense of peace washed over me. It was over. Her part in my life was finished. The chapter was closed. I didn't feel anger or even relief, just a quiet, profound sense of finality. I wasn't looking for revenge anymore. The truth had come to light, and now there was nothing left to fight for. I wasn't going to beg for explanations or apologies. It was done. That afternoon, I took a walk through the lot where the cabin once stood. The memories were still there, like echoes, but they didn't sting anymore. I didn't linger long. Instead, I let my feet carry me down the road, through the quiet town that had once felt so familiar, but now seemed like a different world. It was late when I stopped by the diner. The waitress, who I hadn't seen in months, greeted me with a soft smile. "You look like you've been through it," she said, setting down a coffee in front of me. "But I can tell you're doing better." I smiled back, grateful for her simple observation. "Yeah, I am," I replied. "I think I've found peace." She raised an eyebrow. "You really believe that?" "I do," I said, looking out the window at the setting sun. "The past doesn't haunt me anymore. It's over. I'm free." The waitress nodded as though she understood, and for a moment I felt truly understood. The quiet hum of the diner, the soft clinking of silverware, seemed like the perfect soundtrack for that moment. As I left, I stopped at the beachside restaurant where everything had started, the same place where Alyssa had casually shattered everything that night. I walked to the bar, ordering a drink, and raised my glass in the same spot where, months ago, I had been blindsided. "To resilience," I whispered to myself, and I took a long sip. It wasn't a toast to vengeance or to what could have been. It was a toast to everything I had survived, to the man I had become after the storm. The past, with all its pain and deceit, was behind me. I was no longer burdened by it. As I sat there, watching the waves crash against the shore, I felt light, free. I knew now that I was ready to walk into a new chapter, without the ghosts of the old one lingering over me. Alyssa had her own journey, and it was no longer my responsibility to walk it with her. But for me, I was finally free. I had spent so much of my life trying to fit into a mold that wasn't mine, trying to salvage something that had already fallen apart. The life I had built with Alyssa, the dreams we shared, it all seemed so distant now, like it belonged to someone else. But with each passing day, I felt myself shedding the weight of it all. The bitterness, the regret, the hurt, they were slowly being replaced by something new, something simpler. One morning, as the sun poured through my kitchen window, I poured myself a cup of coffee, letting the warmth seep into my hands. I watched the steam rise and felt the peace I had been searching for over the last few months settle over me like a blanket. I wasn't thinking about Alyssa anymore, or the mistakes I had made. I was thinking about the future. The future. It was a concept that had felt so foreign to me not long ago, but now I could see it clearly. I was no longer shackled by the past. The chains were gone, and the possibilities stretched out before me like a wide-open field. That afternoon, I took a walk in the park. The air was crisp, the trees swaying gently in the breeze. It was one of those perfect days, where the world felt balanced, where every step I took seemed to ground me deeper in the present. I had learned to embrace the simple things, the feel of the wind on my skin, the crunch of leaves underfoot, the soft murmur of people going about their day. For the first time in years, I wasn't rushing anywhere. It was during that walk that I met Emily. She was sitting on a bench reading a book, her hair falling in soft waves around her face. There was something about her, an ease, a quiet confidence that drew me in. She didn't seem to notice me at first, but when she looked up, our eyes met. And for a moment, it felt like the world paused. "Hey," she said, offering a warm smile. "You look like you've got something on your mind." I chuckled, shrugging. "Just enjoying the day. You?" She laughed softly, setting her book aside. "Trying to read, but the day's too nice. Kind of hard to focus." We started talking, and it was effortless. The conversation flowed like it had been waiting to happen, as if we'd known each other for years. There was no pressure, no forced small talk. It felt real, honest. And for the first time in a long time, I felt seen, truly seen, by someone who wasn't looking for a version of me I had to pretend to be. We walked together, sharing stories about our lives, our hopes, our fears. It wasn't anything extravagant, but it was genuine. She didn't ask me about my past. She didn't push me to talk about things I wasn't ready to. She simply let me be who I was in that moment. When we said goodbye, there was no pressure to make plans, no expectations, just a simple promise to talk again. As the days passed, Emily became a steady presence in my life. We walked together, we laughed together, and sometimes we just sat in silence, comfortable in each other's company. Slowly, she helped me heal without even trying. She was the kind of person who understood that healing didn't happen overnight. It happened in small moments, in the quiet times between the noise. With her, I learned that real love wasn't flashy or dramatic. It wasn't about grand gestures or perfect moments. It was about mutual respect, trust, and finding peace in the everyday things. I could feel the weight of my past lifting, replaced by the promise of something new, something real. Emily never asked about the scars I carried, and in a way, that was healing in itself. She didn't define me by my past, just by who I was in the present. As the seasons changed, I felt lighter than I had in years. The chaos of my life with Alyssa faded into the background, and in its place, I found peace. I wasn't defined by the mistakes of yesterday, and I wasn't haunted by the ghosts of what could have been. I was moving forward, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. With Emily, I wasn't just rebuilding my life. I was learning what it truly meant to live again. And for the first time, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be.